your hand out, demanding that I pay the money that I work for. At least that's what you say. But what gives you that power? Who died and made you boss? I'm barely getting by today. I can't afford that loss. So if you don't show some legal obligation that I pay, put your hand back in your pocket, turn around and...
Hello there, I'm Hartwell Broussard, and I welcome you to Help, the program with help and a request for help. The reason help is needed is because America is in distress. If you notice in the background, the American flag is displayed upside down. When a flag is displayed upside down, it is done so as a distress signal. If you wish to confirm that, go to the United States Code, Title 36, Chapter 10, Paragraph 176A. My goal is to help you to understand why America is in distress, and hopefully you will do something to help get us out of this dire situation that we are in. For this program, I will be helping you by showing you part 6 of the video entitled Painful Deceptions Concerning 9/11. It's the final part, and I hope you pay close attention to it. But before going into that, I would like to talk some about the USA Patriot Act. Because of 9/11, Congress passed the USA Patriot Act. In my opinion, the USA Patriot Act destroyed your Bill of Rights. It is very important that you start paying attention to things like the USA Patriot Act, especially if you are in law enforcement. Because as the American citizens lose their rights, we come closer and closer to you people in law enforcement that will be ordered to disarm the American people. If you attempt to do that, you're either going to kill someone or someone will kill you. It is very important, if you are in law enforcement, to understand what really happened on 9/11, understand that bin Laden didn't do it, Saddam Hussein didn't do it, and pay attention to things like history. Understand what happened in Germany whenever Hitler was in power. Find out things like what Hitler's handlers or helpers did whenever it came to burning the Reichstag. 9/11 was pretty much the same. And your elected officials in Congress in Washington, D.C. passed the USA Patriot Act, which is totally unconstitutional. These elected officials took an oath to uphold the Constitution, and then they voted for a bill that's unconstitutional. Some people would say that is treason. And there are people like me that would agree. Treason is a serious crime. And it's time for you people to pay attention to what is happening in and to the country you're living in, especially if you're in law enforcement. Now, here is part 6, the final part of this video entitled Painful deceptions.
The columns in this building were made of concrete with steel reinforcing rods. They did not merely fall over, rather the concrete was pulverized, exposing bare reinforcing rods. Parton's calculations show that when the blast reached the outside of the building, it was a couple thousand pounds per square inch. This would have done a lot of damage to the outside of the building and the office furniture. But his calculations show that when the blast reached the columns, the pressure was too low to pulverize the concrete. One of the columns that was pulverized was so far from the bomb that the pressure would have been only 27 pounds per square inch. Parton also points out that the damage to the building was not symmetrical. The red shading shows the non-symmetrical area. The blast of hot gas was in the shape of a sphere, so that non-symmetrical area should not have occurred. The photograph on the left side is looking up at this non-symmetrical area. There is no way to explain how the truck bomb could have carved out this indentation. The only sensible explanation is that explosives had been placed on the column that supported this section of the building, and when those explosives were detonated, the column was shattered and this section collapsed. Parton's conclusion is that demolition explosives were placed in the building, and McVeigh's truck bomb was merely to fool people into believing that McVeigh was responsible. Unless somebody can show that General Parton's calculations are wrong, the Oklahoma City bombing was a scam. Unfortunately, many people dismiss Parton on the grounds that if he was correct, the government wouldn't allow him to expose the scam. Now consider that unless somebody can show that Masson, I, and others are wrong, the September 11th attack was a sequel to the Oklahoma City bombing. The attacks were identical. For example, in Oklahoma, Tim McVeigh was the foolish patsy, a truck bomb grabbed the attention of the public, and demolition explosives that had been placed in the building before the attack were detonated while people were inside. On September 11th, Mohammed McVeigh was the foolish patsy, airplane crashes grabbed the attention of the public, and demolition explosives that had been placed in the buildings before the attack were detonated while people were inside. Furthermore, some of the same people and companies were used for the investigation and cleanup of both attacks, such as Gene Corley and Controlled Demolitions Incorporated. Whoever did the Oklahoma City bombing scam got away with it. This undoubtedly gave them confidence to expand to something bigger. And since they got away with the September 11th attack, they may be planning something even more spectacular. How did they get away with the Oklahoma City bombing scam? Partly by ignoring Parton. If Parton were to die in a mysterious manner, many people would suspect that he was killed because he was correct. Therefore, the best policy for the people who conducted the Oklahoma bombing scam is to ignore Parton, which creates the impression that he is a conspiracy nut. And then they use the media to fool people into believing McVeigh destroyed the Murrah building with fertilizer and fuel oil. For example, the June 3, 2002 issue of PC Magazine, which is supposed to be about computers, carried an article by John Dvorak called Crackpots, Cranks, and Conspiracies. Dvorak ridiculed people as crackpots for believing conspiracy theories. One of his remarks about the Oklahoma City bombing: according to the websites, there were 2 explosions. No, Dvorak, according to the witnesses, there were 2 explosions. The websites merely repeat reports from local news reporters. After I published my book, I was told of a video made by Alex Jones called 911, The Road to Tyranny. This video has lots of local news reports about the Oklahoma City bombing. Some reports mention that an unexploded bomb was found inside the Murrah building, and later a second unexploded bomb was found. I suppose that if all explosives had detonated, the damage to the building would have been symmetrical. His video is about more than the Oklahoma City bombing, but if you do not know much about that bombing, take a look at it. Here are a couple of samples of what you'll find.
The Justice Department is reporting that a second explosive device has been found.
A second bomb has been found inside that federal building.
There are also reports that Tim McVeigh was not alone in that truck.
That they reveal more than one bomber.
Other reports explain that it was not McVeigh who set off the truck bomb.
That it may have been John Doe number 2, not Timothy McVeigh.
Security cameras on nearby buildings prove that McVeigh drove the truck and then walked away, while someone else in the truck did the work. The FBI even admits the security video exists.
The FBI also confirmed those tapes exist.
As you might expect, the FBI will not let us see those security videos. Could it be the same reason the military refuses to let us see the security video at the Pentagon? Why did these news reporters provide evidence that the Oklahoma City bombing was a scam? Are they crackpots? Conspiracy nuts? No, the bombing was simply a sloppy scam. Witnesses heard 2 or 3 explosions, security cameras saw that Tim McVeigh was a patsy, and some explosives failed to detonate. It was a messy scam, and the people involved had a lot of work to do to cover up the mess. During that time, some of the local reporters were giving honest news reports. However, the national news reporters provided us with the official government lies. The professionals who make millions of dollars per year never let the truth slip out. Pat Shannon provides more evidence that the bombing was a scam. His video has lots of interviews, such as witnesses of the bombing and General Parton. This brings me to the reason I brought up the Oklahoma City bombing. Since 1995, lots of people have been providing evidence that the Oklahoma City bombing is a scam. However, David Porter and millions of other people dismiss these conspiracy theories on the grounds that nobody would be allowed to expose a scam. The truth can be put in front of people's faces, but most people will dismiss it as a conspiracy theory if only a minority of people believe it. People, and most animals, follow each other rather than wander through life alone. This is most obvious with our hair and clothing styles. People are just sheep with intelligence. We also have a craving for praise, which is why award ceremonies are so popular. By comparison, we become defensive when criticized. The people who conduct these scams take advantage of these aspects of human behavior. They have taken the role of a Pied Piper. They fill their news reports with praise and entertainment. They titillate the flock of sheeple by telling them that Americans are the greatest people in the world, that Americans have a free press and are the most educated people, that Americans are heroes who fight the forces of evil. By comparison, people such as myself cause angry reactions when we tell the people that they are ignorant and conceited fools who are letting themselves and their nation be raped repeatedly. The Pied Pipers lead the flock of sheeple away from General Parton's report, Mason's books, my book, and everybody else who has evidence of these scams. Therefore, most people will never know what we say. So what difference does it make if we expose the scams? This concept especially applies to me. I don't have secret sources of information. I simply looked at the news reports and photographs and figured it out. Why would they worry about those of us who figure out the attacks or scams? There are thousands of us. It makes more sense for them to concentrate on controlling the media. Besides, we are of different races, religions, and nationalities, and we are scattered around the world. How could they silence so many of us without attracting attention? You might think that they could use a secret method to kill us, such as exposing us to cancer chemicals or arranging accidents. However, this would be a lot of work on their part, and it would attract attention if everybody who believed these attacks were scams were dying from cancer or accidents. David Porter might read my book if I died mysteriously, but the only 2 groups of people they truly need to fight are the people who fight them, the people who leak secrets. For example, Senator Paul Wellstone was actively resisting the war in Iraq. Not surprisingly, his airplane had an unfortunate accident. Read the article on Flight 77 at the Urban Legend site, Or read articles by these other suspicious journalists. Why would the people behind these scams worry about me when they can manipulate millions of people with these simplistic articles? The best policy for the people who conduct these scams is to convince the nation that Masson, I, and others are anti-American, delusional paranoiacs who are more repugnant than Yasser Arafat's 3-week-old underwear. With journalists like these dominating our media, and with most people trusting them, what difference does it make if I expose the September 11th scam? David Porter's second argument is that many government officials would do something if the attack was a scam. He assumes that these officials would put on their shining armor, jump on their horses, and rush off to fight the people who did this. But how can our government fight a scam unless it investigates the attack and determines that it was indeed a scam? The first action our government should have taken was to investigate the attack. Congresswoman McKinney was one of the government officials looking into it, and lots of citizens of different races, religions, and organizations were also investigating. The American Free Press, for example, was running one article after the next about the suspicious aspects of the attack, and several radio talk shows were also investigating. But David Porter and most other citizens ignored or insulted these people, while giving full support to Bush and Cheney, who wanted to limit the investigation.
Let us never tolerate outrageous conspiracy theories concerning the attacks of September the 11th.
Not surprisingly, our government never found any evidence that the attack was a scam. Our government never even found a reason for why Building 7 collapsed. Porter is correct that there are some people in our government who would not tolerate a scam. Parton and McKinney are examples. However, most Americans ignored or ridiculed both of them, while supporting these two rich kids as they pretended to be world leaders, and these guys as they used the attack as an excuse to bomb Afghanistan. Porter and other Americans inadvertently assist these scams by suppressing investigations. Government officials cannot help the nation if the citizens ridicule them as conspiracy nuts. Hundreds of citizens have tried to help Americans realize that their nation has problems, but none of their books have done anything to improve the nation because most people refuse to consider that they might be correct. Millions of people will ignore what I say because I am alive, not because they find mistakes with my accusations. Most people will also follow the majority of people, and they believe almost everything they see on television. In fact, a slogan in some advertisements is, "as seen on TV." The first priority of the people who conduct scams is the control of the media. As long as they can manipulate the millions of sheep, it makes no difference what the rest of us are saying. Since 1945, lots of people have worried that the next World War will be horrible because it will involve nuclear weapons. I think we're having the next World War right now, but the primary weapon in this war is deception, mainly through television, but also newspapers and magazines. It's easier for journalists to deceive people than it is for a military to conquer them. An Associated Press article from May 13, 1996 provides an example. After Tim McVeigh's bomb exploded, one of the first policemen to run into the building was Sergeant Terrence Yeakey. He helped people out of the building, then fell through 2 floors, injuring his back. The city decided to give him a Medal of Honor at a ceremony about a year after the bombing. Unfortunately, he committed suicide 3 days before the ceremony. His suicide was described in one sentence. He had apparently tried to slit his wrists, then shot himself to death. It ain't easy to get away with the murder of a policeman, but one journalist can deceive millions of people into thinking the murder was suicide. How obvious do the scams have to be before the American people realize that they're being manipulated? For example, what if Paul Query had written this? He tried to slit his wrists, and then he tried to rape himself, and then he ran over himself with his car. Would that be obvious enough? If a military attacked us, many people would proudly fight back, but most people are easily controlled with deceptive news reports. By the way, why would they kill Sergeant Yeekey? According to Pat Shannon, Yeekey had evidence that the attack was a scam, and he was planning to expose it. But, as with Parton and McKinney, most Americans ignored him. It ain't difficult to understand that the McVeigh bomb and 9/11 were scams. So how can people get away with such obvious scams? Because America is corrupt beyond your wildest dreams. There are lots of Americans willing to join these scams. And Bush's buddy is also. The FBI violates so many laws that they should put themselves on their most wanted list. Americans often boast about our Bill of Rights and our freedom of speech, and they often ridicule the government-controlled media of communist nations. However, the American media is being used like a weapon to manipulate the public and keep them ignorant, often in obvious ways, such as when Congresswoman McKinney was described as more repugnant than Yasser Arafat's 3-week-old underwear. How is that worthless and insulting propaganda any better than the communist propaganda? The American people are being deceived, not educated or encouraged to discuss issues. Furthermore, neither the U.S. government nor the American people put pressure on the news reporters to stop this manipulation and provide intelligent articles. The only pressure news reporters feel is to provide news that is more entertaining than their competition. The reason is simply because most Americans want entertainment, not serious reports. This is why American news reports are dominated by sexual titillation, Hollywood gossip, and weird crimes. As long as most people behave like these guys, America will continue to suffer from extreme corruption and disgusting news reports. Only a small percentage of the population created America in 1776, and only a small number would be needed to change the nation today. The question I wonder about is, does America have enough respectable citizens to turn this nation into something we can be proud of?
What you have just seen is the final part of the video entitled Painful Deceptions. I hope I have helped you to understand what 9/11 was really all about. I hope you know by now that "9/11 was an inside job." And like I mentioned at the beginning of this program, it's time for you to pay attention to things like the Patriot Act. Some people say it totally destroyed the Bill of Rights. And again, if you are in law enforcement, if you are ordered to continue taking the rights away from the people, especially the right to keep and bear arms, you're either going to kill someone or you are going to get killed. Understand that there are good people and there are bad people. Bad people hurts other people. Good people helps other people. I will not hurt anyone, but I will help others if they're in need. In other words, if you go after them, I will be after you. I will defend myself, and many more will. Think hard about what I just said. And until next time, may all your sunsets set right. And may the good Lord bless you both, day and night.